Hello and welcome to the 27 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1 Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney III. I want to say thank you to our good friends at Wilson for sponsoring this pod. If you're in Omaha this week, make sure you visit the Omaha Experience right across from the ballpark. You'll find Evo Shield, Louisville Slugger, DeMarini, and Wilson all under one roof. Find limited edition gloves, bats, gear, and more available only during the Men's College World Series. So if you're in Omaha, get over to the Village right next to the stadium, right by the right field foul pole, and have that Omaha experience with the folks at Wilson. Stuff is really, really cool. Some incredible swag over there. This morning, I am joined by Joe Healy and Kendall Rogers and Aaron Fitt. And gentlemen, just good morning. Happy Monday morning. How are we doing today?
Good morning, Runes.
I'm doing well, Runes.
Yeah, doing okay. It's quite a weekend. I'm feeling ready to go for the second half here.
Day 4.
Monday
Joe,
morning.
any keys? Go ahead. Any keys to day 4?
What breaking news that it's Monday morning? That's breaking news.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Runes. I stepped all over your question.
No, you're good. I'm asking, is there any keys to day 4 to a Monday morning in Omaha?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to get to the point, the first day you're jazzed, you're ready to go, and then we're fueling on those great games we got the first 2 days. But yesterday's games, a little bit more of a slog, no disrespect, but comfortable wins, right? So today it's one of those deals where it's basically like we're on a Sunday game. It's a Monday, but we're playing a Sunday game. We got to bring our own energy, right?
Yep.
You got to be prepared that, hey, I'm going to have to give more to this game than these games than it probably gives me, right?
Oh, I love that mentality.
Because this is usually when the energy starts to lag a little bit, and I'm not having it today. I'm just flatly not having it.
I love that. Fitzy, does that mean we got to switch up our Monster flavor drink today, or what do we do?
No free ads, Coach Rooney.
Okay, our energy drink of choice.
Yeah, we're going with the white energy drink this morning. I think that's the right play.
Nice. Sounds very caffeinated. I like it.
Yeah.
Kendall, how are you? You good?
I'm doing awesome, man. I'm doing awesome. I'm not looking forward to the weather tomorrow. Don't go look at that, but I'm doing awesome today.
Kendall, before you had children, were you a weather person, or is that when you become a dad, then you start checking weather?
So no, it's when I started covering college baseball, because people always think it's funny because when we have friends over at our pool, I'll look at the Lightning app and be like, oh, the Lightning's 9.5 miles away. So I look like one of those field crew people over there always looking at the Lightning meter. So I don't know. I'll follow the weather a little bit. I've got a pretty good track record on following weather and predicting accurately.
So you have a Lightning app on your phone?
Yeah, it's a free app. It's just called the Lightning app. It's got a yellow logo, and it's great. If you get in the pool a lot and stuff like that, or Aaron, you golf a lot, you pull up that app and it'll tell you how far the Lightning is away and how long it's going to take to get to you.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Because I am told don't be in a pool when lightning is striking. That sounds like a bad.
Or swing a golf club. There's last week by my house. There was a guy out there golfing, and there was lightning striking all around the golf course. I'm like, I don't know about you, but I'm not swinging a golf club on the golf course when it's lightning.
Yeah.
What say you, Aaron?
No, it's not the right play. No,
it was Lee Trevino out there. It wasn't Lee Trevino.
Not the right play. That's one way to put it.
Yes. No. Well said. All right, boys. Let's review yesterday's games, the Sunday games. Then we'll get to previewing today's games. Who among you wrote about the Florida State-Virginia game? Any of you?
I think that was me. That was a long time ago. It feels like, but yeah, that was me. That was me.
Fitzy, you want to give us some summary thoughts on that ball game?
Yeah, just super impressed with the way Florida State bounced back. I mean, I loved how candid Link Jarrett was about how devastating that loss to Tennessee was. How he had a headache for 2.5 days afterwards. It was just the thing I loved about it was they couldn't hide from it. They couldn't hide from it. They went to this lunch at the Kiwanis Club. And up on the TVs behind them, they are getting walked off by Tennessee, right? I mean, the whole team had to just watch it, and it's that's probably good for you. You got to just take your medicine when something like that happens. And that was a really, really tough loss, and they had to regroup. And I thought what I wrote yesterday was I thought they had the perfect guy in the mound to do it in Carson Dorsey, because he's the guy who's had to face down his demons. Twice in a row. Again, I keep going back to this Clemson weekend because it was, in my opinion, a pivotal point in their season. This first really taste of adversity they had. It's probably the low point of their season, where they had back-to-back days they had leads of 8-1 and then 11-3 in the late innings, and they blew both of those games. And Dorsey took the loss in both those games, and he gave up a grand slam in both of those days to Blake Wright of Clemson, the same guy, to kind of highlight those losses. And it was a tough scene, man. Those were tough losses, and he had to wear it, and he bounced back from that. And he became a guy for them that they could count on in the rotation. And then in the ACC tournament, once again, he kind of, he gets lit up. 2 relief outings, and he bounces back from that, and he becomes a guy that they can count on in the starting role in the postseason. And so he just feels like a resilient kid. And when their season was on the line, he delivered for him 7 strong innings against Virginia, and that was the story of the game, because Virginia can really hit. It's the 4th highest scoring offense in the country, and he held them to 3 runs over 7 innings, and that was really the key to the whole thing. And Florida State did enough offensively and played good defense and just played a really good, crisp, clean game. And so hats off to those guys for getting off the mat the way they did.
Love it. Kendall, any thoughts on the game and or thoughts on as we kind of close the book on Virginia's season?
Yeah, obviously a great season for UVA, but I'm with Aaron in the sense that, after losing a game in heartbreaking fashion, I thought he put it great in a story that FSU had to kind of dig deep a little bit. I mean, this is a program that has a history of, when things like that have happened in Omaha, they haven't responded the best, right? And I thought they looked very good yesterday. They looked like a well-oiled machine. Dorsey was great. The offense was locked in. Jaime Ferrer, once again, another terrific performance. So just, I guess that's kind of what I expected a little bit out of Florida State, which is why I picked them. I just think Link is a phenomenal coach, and I thought he would have them ready. And the other thing too is if you look back at the UT game, they essentially lost because they did a couple of little things wrong. They didn't do a couple of little things wrong yesterday, and you see the end result.
Joseph?
I'm interested on the Virginia side. Brian O'Connor is probably among the most well-adjusted, even-tempered guys we have among coaches in college baseball. So he has good perspective on things, but at the same time acknowledging when I ask him in postgame that they've got to find that next little 1% to get them over the hump and get them to another deep run here, because it's been a little while. They've gone 1-6 in their last 3 trips here. They won their first game here in 21 and then have lost their last 6. So on one hand, it's like, hey, you're getting back to Omaha again, which is good news, because they did hit a program dip there, 2017, 18, 19, I forget the exact years, but there was a dip, and they brought it back from that, which is incredibly hard to do. But now is the next step, which is, okay, what do we need to get to winning games here with more regularity again? And that's the challenge. That's the challenge in front of them. So I'm kind of fascinated to see what's next for Virginia in that regard. And, if I knew exactly what that answer was, I'd be, probably making a lot more money selling my services as some sort of consultant. So that's the tough part for O'Connor and his staff. But I'll be interested to see, what they try and how they tweak things moving forward to make a deeper run.
Yeah, I would add to that, Joe, like on the Virginia side, 7 Omahas since 2009 is just an incredible number, and as you said, it's funny that the national title in 2015, they had already started a downtrend, but we didn't know it yet, but they won the national title as a 3 seed. It was a 2014 team that was super powerful and just almost went wire to wire as the number 1 team. But I think, to miss the NCAA tournament in 18 and 19, as you referenced, and then these 3 out of 4 Omahas, I was bummed that it didn't feel like we got to see the full power of that position player group in the postseason. They were fine, but not like this unreal group that they had been at times during the regular season. And I also think that, as we analyze these things, coaches are doing the same thing. And in this venue in Omaha, lost moments become lost games. And so how do you parse that out? Like, is there a flaw in my program? Like you're saying, Joe, like, is there a 1% that helps me win that moment instead of losing, getting walked off? Of Virginia's 1-6 in their last 3 trips. You may have just referenced that, Joe, and 4 of those losses are by 1 run. So how do you parse that out? And I do think if I was going to throw a blanket on it, I would love to see Virginia show up here with like an elite arm. It feels like they're showing up with a lot of pitchability and not a lot of elite arms. But go ahead, Fitzy.
Yes, I think, and even Brian O'Connor alluded to that, in his post-game remarks. He was like, well, when we won, We kind of did it with pitching, and power pitching in particular they had big arms. They had guys that could really shut you down. Now that said, I don't think they lost out here because of pitching. I mean,
Right.
it was 3-2 and it was 7-3. I mean, the bottom line is they scored 6 runs in 2 games. And it's not because they didn't have chances. Like if they just came out here and got shut down a couple times, that'd be one thing. But I mean, they left 10 guys on base, maybe in one of those games, and I think 8 in the other one, something like that. I mean, they left a lot of men on base. They had opportunities. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with their position player group. It was an elite position player group. They just didn't, they didn't get the big hits, and that's just something that happens in baseball sometimes. And I just think you can kind of overanalyze it, and it doesn't necessarily help you. I just think your guys need to be hot at the right time, and you got to credit the other team's pitching, of course. But I mean, like, it's not like they weren't knocking on the door. It's just like they need one more swing, and play here, play there. I mean, in the first game they played, Brian O'Connor lamented the dirt ball reads. They didn't, the little things they didn't quite execute. And again, they're a well-coached program. Always, they usually do those things. That's why I think he was disappointed and thought that they didn't play UVA baseball. I just think that's an aberration. I don't think that's an indictment of the program. I do agree with you that it helps to have shutdown arms. Last couple of years they've gotten here, it's been with more pitchability guys, but that hasn't really hurt them once they've gotten here either. I mean, they've still pitched fine. So I would like to see them go back to bring in some more of these foundational big power arms, but you don't necessarily have to have that anymore, I guess. So I guess I'm teetering back and forth on that.
Yeah, I think that's the point, right? It's like you lose these games in a moment. So how do you evaluate the difference between winning that moment and losing it? So very interesting. Before we get to game one, throughout the College World Series, throughout the summer, all year round, d1baseball.com is your home for the most in-depth college baseball news, updates, scores, and Kendall's rankings. Again, I want to reiterate, if you have any problems with our rankings throughout the year, just go at Kendall on Twitter. I don't know why he does what he does with these rankings.
Well, the caveat is if Tennessee you feel is too low, at Aaron Fitt on Twitter, please.
Yes,
Hashtag ball Twitter.
Sure.
Yeah, let's go. Get a game analysis, series previews, transfer portal updates, coaching updates, and so much more. Visit d1baseball.com today. Again, you could argue that the offseason is a more important time to have a sub to the site than it is during the season. You want to have it all year round. Bracket 30 is your code right now. Type that in at checkout and you'll get 30% off. Again, that's bracket as an NCAA tournament. Oh, is it still, Kendall?
No, it is. I was going to say, yeah, we're getting close to summer ball too. With I think Aaron and Joe are both going up to the Cape. I think Coach Seifert's going to be up at the Cape as well. So we'll have a lot of summer coverage.
Love that. Love that.
I got Patrick Ebert covering the Northwoods League as well, and I'll be hitting I'll be hitting some Coastal Plain League and NECBL and hopefully some Valley League as well. So yeah, lots of and Team USA. We got that going on. We got lots of summer coverage.
There we go. We sleep in December, I guess.
That's right.
August.
Nice. Pebert's going to sniff out the next Charlie Condon in the Northwoods League for us. Boys, the first game today will be NC State versus Florida. NC State will start Dom Fritton or Logan Whitaker, we believe. And then Florida almost certainly, and I think, Joe, you said you've seen that it's going to be Jack Caglione. Joseph, why don't you start us off on this one? What say you about this game?
I think so much of when Caglione pitches for Florida, it's just about which version of Cags do you get. I mean, that is it feels like the single biggest factor in Florida games when he's on the mound. He's had obviously some ups and downs. He was pretty good last weekend in Clemson, I thought. And he pitched in that game that was kind of got out of hand from a craziness perspective, the ejections and the chirpiness and all that stuff that happened in the CAG start. And so to kind of deal with all of that and throw well, I thought said a lot about him. I think the other thing about him that's interesting too, and I wish I had some data to back this up. I haven't looked it up, but Florida gets a lift when Cags is on the mound, and it's not necessarily because he always pitches well, but there's a body language thing. Like, he clearly loves setting the tone by being on the mound and hitting. You notice little things like when he comes out of the dugout to go back on the mound, he's typically the first guy out. And he typically, jogs out to the mound, doesn't walk out to the mound. And those little things can matter in terms of setting a tone for your team. So much of this game, not to take anything away from NC State's ability, obviously, but so much of this game just is going to depend on what kind of Jack Caglione we get. I think that's the reality when you've got an arm like his.
KR.
Yeah, I'm with Joe on the Cags factor. I think Florida. I thought Florida the other night was a kind of a tale of two teams. I think if you look at Florida the first 6 innings against A&M, that looked like an offensive approach and offensive lineup that we've kind of seen most of the year, right? Like a little bit of hacking away, some bad ABs, things like that. I thought the last couple innings, I thought Florida offensively was on Ashenbeck a little bit. I mean, they had some key strikeouts, but I think they were getting really good swings off of him. I mean, they were Jace Lavalette away from potentially winning that game. So I thought the last couple innings, their offense was good. I think the biggest key for me is, do they, in a weird way, do they continue to kind of that momentum they had late against A&M into this next game, even though they lost? If they do, I like Florida's chances in this game, because I think what they can do is they can, even if Cags has a bad start, I think they can match up a little bit in the middle innings. And we all know, right? Like if they get to the 7th or they get to even the 6th and their season's on the line, they're going to turn things over to Brandon Neely, who was once again nasty the other night against A&M. So I lean Florida here, but as pretty much every game in this World Series, like it's a toss-up. But I like Florida by here.
Fitzy.
Yeah, one thing I'm interested in is how that NC State offense fares against an elite left-handed pitcher, because I'll say first of all that the stats don't really paint a good picture of who NC State is. If you look at their season-long stats, I think they're a lot better than their season-long stats across the board. However, there's a pronounced difference in the splits here. Their OPS against left-handed pitching is 764 this year, heading into Omaha, and against righties it was 968. I mean, that's a 200-point gap, which is by far the most dramatic split of any of these 8 teams in Omaha. So that's going to be key. Is can they stay within their approach and manufacture something? And I think they can. I think they can grind out at bats enough. I mean, Cags could come out and do something special for sure, but I mean, you just don't, like you guys have said, you just don't ever know. And I do think this NC State offense is disciplined enough. They've evolved enough at this point in the season that I think they're going to be ready. And Chris Hart and Bo Robinson, those guys, Elliot Avent, they're going to put together a good game plan. And I just think this is a resilient NC State bunch. I still love their bullpen. I know you got the Neely factor for Florida, but I would expect more from Jacob Duden and Derek Smith than we saw the other day. And so I think NC State is still the team I'm leaning toward here. I will be interested to see what the Wolfpack does on the mound. I mean, again, splits, there's a little bit of a difference, about 100-point gap in OPS for Florida. They're better against lefties than righties, which I found interesting. So maybe you see Connor Whitaker, plus he's the veteran guy, the 5th-year guy who's been around a long time and has a lot of experience, maybe a little bit more reliable than Fritton, but Fritton may be more capable of giving you a dominant outing if he's on. So that'll be a fascinating decision to see which way they lean there.
Let's go around the horn on that. And Joe, you can go first. Here's my question. And if you had another comment, please share it. If you were Elliot Avent and Clint Chrysler, would you throw Logan Whitaker or would you throw Dom Fritton? Go ahead, Joe.
I think I would lean on the experience here, especially in an elimination game, because I think the last thing in an elimination game that you want is a game that kind of gets away from you quick. So I think I'd go with the experience here with Whitaker. I mean, it's tempting to go with the stuff and the guy who could dominate. The thing about it is, though, we've seen with this Florida lineup that if you're just locating, you very well might be okay. I mean, you got to deal with Cags, obviously, but the other guys you can pitch to if you're locating. And I think I trust a veteran more in that spot. My thing I was going to interject with, Runes, is that we got a pat stat delivery on Cags starting for Florida. 11-4 in Cags starts this season, but they've lost 3 of the last 5 starts for Cags. So there you go.
Yeah, interesting. Kendall, would you go Whitaker or would you go Fritton? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I was
Good.
getting a text. Experience. So what Joe said.
Yeah. Fitzy?
Sure. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, why not?
Yep. You know what? I'm to put
We're real convicted.
Yes, conviction Monday. I think I'm just really curious about the bullpens. I'm worried about Derek Smith and Jacob Duden as far as just fatigue, but also Neely was awesome the other night, but there's got to be some point where Neely starts to, the second game he pitched against Clemson, there was a ton of loud contact. He just gutted his way through it and survived it. So, but right now, as we sit here this morning, man, like Brandon Neely gives Florida a bullpen advantage over almost anybody in the field. Like the best version of him has been gnarly. So let's do the next game. Before we do that, you can hear more from D1 Baseball with the D1 Baseball podcast all year round. Myself, Kendall, Fitzy, Joe Healy, breaking down teams, talking with coaches, keep you up to date on all things college baseball. You can also hear exclusive SEC content with the Highway to Hoover podcast, ACC content with ACC baseball, etc. The ETC, if you will.
Nailed
There
it.
we go.
Yes,
Boy.
yeah. I had to load. I kind of get to get my weight back for that. And all the oddities in college baseball with the Shock Factor podcast. Download the D1 Baseball podcast, part of the SiriusXM podcast network, right now on the SiriusXM app or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a minute. All right, so go, Fitzy.
Coach Rooney, I just want to make sure we touch on the night game last night as well. I don't think we've talked about the Vols yet, have we?
Oh, shoot. Did we just cruise right past them?
I think so.
Go ahead, Fitzy.
I'm looking out for you, Vols fans. Super impressive.
Beam.
Super
Yeah.
impressive, just team performance. I thought it was domination last night for Tennessee. I know it was a close game. It was scoreless into the fourth, but it just felt like once Tennessee got that 3-run homer from Tiers to take the lead, it just felt like that game. It just felt like they had it, man. And Beam was awesome. I mean, I thought he held his velocity, he mixed his whole repertoire. Command was there. He always throws strikes, but I just was really impressed with the two guys after him. Kirby Cannell and Nate Snead. I mean, it felt like they just kind of smothered North Carolina. I mean, I know they had a chance here or there, but it didn't really feel like they were really, really in it, right? I mean, they started emptying their bullpen a little bit more, seeing some more guys for North Carolina in the bullpen than we haven't seen as much lately. It kind of felt like they were, they knew that there was a little bit of a long shot at that point, but just really, really impressive. I mean, it feels right now like Tennessee's a buzzsaw. I feel like they're going to be hard to stop now that they survived that scare from Florida State. It just feels like look out, man.
Yep. KR, what are your thoughts on the Vols?
Yeah, I'm with Aaron on that one. I think Tennessee is one of those teams that at this point, I don't think they're going to beat themselves. You're going to have to play a very, very good game and knock those guys off. And it was Christian Moore in game one. Kavares Tiers last night had a huge performance for the Vols offensively, and of course Drew Beam pitched the way he did. So yeah, and then you look at the defense. That's one thing I talked about on the local station this morning, just the amount of great defensive plays we've seen. And we saw yet another one in center field last night, even left some eye black on the wall that he hit that wall so hard. So the Vols are playing exceptionally well.
And how about the play Colby Wilkerson made early in the game? I know it didn't factor into the game, but I mean, that diving stop in the hole at shortstop for North Carolina makes the throw from his knees. Unbelievable play, really. Like kind of knocked my socks off.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like this World Series. Might have the best defense I've seen in a while.
It's been awesome.
It's every game has some incredible defensive plays.
Yeah, even the losing teams like Didewick robbing a home run yesterday as well. The game for Virginia. I mean, it's just like a lot of wow plays every game. It's been awesome.
Joe, give us your take on the Vols. You've seen a ton of these guys.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect. And this is what I wrote after the game last night. Just kind of a perfect showcase of the way they've rebuilt their pitching staff, where they have Drew Beam as a centerpiece, but Drew Beam's not Dolander or Burns when those guys were going really good, right? Where it's like set it and forget it for 7 or 8 dominant innings. It's not that. And so he gets them through 5. Then you've got Kirby Cannell, who has already thrown 3 times as many innings as he did last year. And he's thrived in a role that's very different from what he's done for them in the past. And then you bring in Nate Snead, a guy they brought in from the transfer portal. And Tony Vitello's been pretty open about thinking this is Frank Anderson's best coaching job he's done with the Vols in terms of putting a pitching staff together, and it's hard to argue given the results.
Yeah, man, that they are rolling. Yeah, to your point, Fitzy, North Carolina had a chance in the 5th. They had a chance in the 6th. They didn't capitalize at all. And you have to give Tennessee some credit for that too. They kind of smothered that out, and then it was done. It was just, and Reese Chapman hitting a home run. The only guy in the line, literally they have 8 dudes with double-digit home runs. He's the only guy without double-digit home runs. So, of course, he goes deep sauce. Let's preview the final game real quickly. So it's Kentucky versus A&M. We think it's Mason Moore versus Ryan Prager. Joe, why don't you start us off? What say you about that game?
I worry from the Kentucky standpoint that that's a particularly bad matchup. Mason Moore's not an elite strike thrower. he has a lot of games where he's around the strike zone, but not in the strike zone. And if he's getting the corners, then it might be a pretty good day for Mason Moore. But as we know in the SEC, so often at least, strike zones feel like a postage stamp sometimes. And so it ends up being a lot of close misses. And then he has to give in at some point. And his stuff is it's good stuff, but it's not great stuff. And it's a sinker. It's not like a blow it by you fastball. And then he gets hit. So given A&M's ability to, they're just not going to swing at pitches they don't like. Especially if the zone is small, I do worry a little bit from Kentucky's standpoint that Mason Moore, it might be a tough day for him just given the way A&M approaches offense. So to me, that's the number one thing I'm looking at is, can Mason Moore be effective against a lineup that is dead set on not swinging the bat?
Love it. Kendall.
I lean A&M here, and this is the main reason. Ryan Prager. He's a guy that, when he's had a bad start, typically the next start's really good. Last week against Oregon, they were hitting him like he was throwing beach balls up there. I think he threw like 35 pitches and was out of the game. So he's got a lot of rest, and he's a guy that in this ballpark matches up really well. Like he's a breaking ball guy. He's going to keep the ball pretty low in the zone. When he's at home or in an SEC ballpark and it's warm, the wind's blowing, he can be hit a little bit. But in a place like this where it's a little larger, he can be really effective. And so my money is on him putting together a good start. But he to me, he is the key to the game, kind of like Mason Moore for Kentucky. Prager has to give A&M some length because A&M's bullpen is solid outside of Evan and Chris Cortez. If Prager's out by the fourth inning, then you're relying on Brad Rudis, Josh Stewart. You just don't. If you're Jim Schlossnickle, you don't want to get into that game against Kentucky, a team that can just drive you crazy. So I think Prager and then A&M defensively, Kentucky can put a lot of pressure on you. A&M's going to need to be sharp defensively.
Love it. Fitzy, quick pick from you, please.
Real quick. A&M I like, but Mason Moore's Mr. June. It had like a streak of like 20-something scoreless innings in a row that was snapped, I think, in the Supers. But he's been awesome for them. Their bullpen's been awesome. I love the way Kentucky has pitched. I think that this is going to be an interesting game.
Love it. My big takeaways from the pod: the Lightning app and the Kiwanis Club. Things that Coach Rooney needs to investigate. That's it. Everybody enjoy day 4 of the College World Series, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.